Okay, we are live.
We are.
And welcome to the show. We are the Mentionables, and tonight we're going to be talking about a brief revisit to Pascal's wager, as well as looking at this week in trolling, among other things. So stick around to see what all we have in store. But first, let's get through introductions of everybody here tonight. Of course, I'm Caleb Johnston. Over here to my right,
Joel Furchess.
Underneath Joel there on your screen.
And I'm Nick Peters, and I affirm the virgin birth.
All right. And and right over beside Nick,
I am Clinton Wilcox.
thank you all for being here tonight. Glad to have you for this discussion. I'm sure we'll have a good time as usual. So, and as always, or as it's been at least recently, we love interacting with chat and listeners. So if you have questions or comments that come up during the show, please include them in chat. We'd love to interact with them. So don't hesitate to hurl some insults or questions our way. But before we get started, Joel, you had mentioned some exciting news.
Yes, we have a new patron on Patreon. For those of you who don't know, we have a Patreon account, and our Patreon account pays out. This particular patron signed up for our Book of the Month deal. Donators of $20 or more get an apologetics book mailed to them every month, and it's usually a pretty good one. So our new patron is Seth Furchess, no relation. Okay, he's a relation, but I don't like claiming it.
So who is Seth
Enjoy
Furchess?
your copy of One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish.
Hey, Seth got the Mentionables Project as his first book. I'd like to say an autographed copy, but nah, I wasn't the one that mailed it. So, anyway, oh yes, the question is, who was Seth? Oh, that would be my brother. But
okay.
under Patreon rules, I'm obligated to give him a shout out. So,
Nepotism.
thanks, bro.
Nepotism.
How do you think we support ourselves here? Rich relatives, that's it.
Oh, we need rich relatives? Well, I guess I'm out.
Yeah, that makes two of us. Well, we're glad to have Seth joining us. At least I am. So,
Yeah, welcome, Seth.
Oh,
and on that, let's talk about TWIT. TWIT, you may ask.
Long-time listeners will remember, because this is something we started back 3-4 years ago now. Let's see, 2017 would have been, it's 2021, so 4 years. We're riding the rails to our 5th year, guys. So, anyways,
riding the rails or skidding along?
Yeah, let's
Somewhere in between.
Let's think positive. At any rate, it hasn't fallen apart yet, and it wasn't a thing that was even supposed to come together. Longtime listeners will know the story already, but the Mentionables was a joke. It was never meant to be what it is now. It was a joke that I threw out one time, looking for things to say. I was like, you know what? I'd love to get these guys that nobody's ever heard about together. We'd do a tour. We'd do apologetics conference. And we'd be called the Mentionables. The Mentionables, that name was a joke. And so, after I had said the joke, we started talking about it, and the discussion got bigger and bigger, and the rest is history. Anyway, when we were talking about brainstorming doing the podcast, we were thinking about doing particular sections of the podcast. Maybe a section on psychology or religion, which one of us would speak about, and maybe a section on, the biblical scholarship, which probably Nick, would you be up for that? Yep.
Yeah. I affirm version first.
Yeah, we could call it that. But TWIT was a section titled This Week in Trolling. And it was a segment where we got to talk about the atheist trolls that we'd interacted with that week and some interesting discussions that came up from that. And I included that mostly because Tyler, if anybody ever listens to his podcast, occasionally his entire episode is just a frustrating interaction he had with a atheist troll. And the nuggets of truth that he harvested from that discussion. So it was a joke, but it was thrown in there for Tyler's sake. And we're reviving it. All right. So one of us has not been Facebooking recently for reasons.
Yeah. So apparently, if you mention certain letters that follow LMNOP too much, then Facebook will throw you in jail.
Super powerful entities from the popular show Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm assuming that's why, because Facebook never gave me more of a reason, but they locked me out of all groups and posting. So our Mentionables Live last week didn't show up on Facebook due to this reason. So I was locked out of posting in any groups. So I've just been released from Facebook jail, at least temporarily. Even though they never replied to let me know why I was locked out in the first place. So who knows when I'll do it again, but so it goes. So I've been trolled by Facebook this week. That was fun.
Facebook itself.
Yes.
You got zucked, bruh.
So you're saying you have a question about why you were removed from Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this happened to me one time. I got an alert in my Facebook alerts, and it said something about, you could expand your reach if you paid for advertising. So it wouldn't go away unless I clicked on it. So I clicked on it, and instead of taking me to that ad, it took me to this thing that said I'd been reported for hate speech. And, did I agree with the report? Well, it wouldn't tell me the thing that had been reported. It just gave me an option of yes or no, do I agree? And the yes or no block wouldn't go away unless I clicked on a button. So I agreed that I had participated in hate speech without knowing what I had said or how it had been reported, and I have no idea why it came up as an ad for publicizing myself.
Wow.
Algorithms, folks. Algorithms.
By the Ministry of Plenty.
All right, so Caleb got trolled by Facebook itself. Clinton, you've never interacted with any trolls, have you?
Well, I mean, yeah, the trolls are all over Facebook. Some of the, people I've accumulated as Facebook friends, people I've never met in real life will just kind of take it upon themselves whenever I make a, political post to tell me how wrong they think I am, and I never miss an opportunity, so yeah, so I've pretty much stopped interacting with people like that because I don't want to just be drawn into endless arguments over Facebook. I have jobs and real life responsibilities that I have to tend to, so I can't just spend all day reacting to trolls and feeding them, basically.
So I was added to a Filipino atheist group, and I declined the ad, and then I was added again, and so I accepted the ad because, dang it, I can't help but get pulled into discussions every once in a while. So something that was posted, not in this group, but by another Facebook friend I have who is an atheist, he posted a meme, which I will quote to you now. It says, Christianity, sending telepathic messages to a Jewish ghost, letting him know that you will accept him as your master and ask him to remove magical curse that was passed down to you because an old woman that was made from the rib of her partner ate a piece of magical fruit from a magical tree because a talking snake told her to. Ask me again why I'm an atheist.
Oh, is that all?
Well, no, I mean, pulling it apart as I do, it was interesting to me. I mean, the little bit of, magical this and sky daddy that thing, that's typical atheist rhetoric.
Yeah,
And then it was followed by ask me again why I'm an atheist. And I'm connecting the second statement to the first. And the implication here, of course, is that because this story is so ridiculous, I'm an atheist, meaning I don't believe in God. And to me, that doesn't follow. It doesn't follow that one religion says certain ridiculous things, and therefore the larger concept of God does not exist.
Right.
Well, I would imagine this person would say that all religions say ridiculous things.
And that may be true, but do those ridiculous things serve as evidence against the concept of God? Or just the veracity of that particular religion?
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's his conception of Christianity that's ridiculous. It's not Christianity itself. The reason he's, I can guess what he would tell me if I asked him why he's an atheist, but the real reason he's an atheist is because he is incapable of or unwilling to understand the position of people who disagree with him.
Well, atheist to me means either that he believes there is no God or he does not believe in God. And if the concept of God rides entirely on, let's call them mythological stories, then that would be one thing. But I don't think the concept of God is dependent on those stories. I think as a concept, God is larger than that.
Yeah,
I mean
deism could be true in that God would still exist, but every claim that God's active in the world would be absolutely false. But it still wouldn't be atheism.
Right. Well, you're a big fan of Aquinas, right, Nick?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Aquinas got a lot of his reasoning from Aristotle.
Mm-hmm.
And Aristotle reasoned himself to a prime mover without access to Jewish scriptures.
Divine revelation. Yes.
Right. And so it is possible that you could still have a philosopher's God without having access to these stories.
Yep.
And if that were so, like, if Aristotle was sitting around coming up with his prime mover, and then somebody were to shove the Jewish scriptures in front of him, and he were to find them as ridiculous as this gentleman did, would that suddenly discount the reasoning behind the prime mover?
Not a bit. And
It would not.
Linus and I mean, I'm not sure how much you can see it on TV, but we're kind of like this, okay? This is him way up here. This is me way down here. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, it's this whole stupid thing that so many atheists also have. I mean, like Tyler's good friend David McAfee had his book Disproving Christianity. And how does he disprove Christianity? He tries to disprove inerrancy. And if inerrancy is disproved, then Christianity is disproved. And I'm going through another book on my Kindle about disproving Christianity by a guy named Sig Sawyer or something like that. And it is a train wreck right from the very start. I mean, it's really sad how bad so many of these atheist arguments are. I mean, yeah, there are plenty of equally bad arguments on the Christian side, but the thing is, atheists are ones who go and say, we are champions of reason. And yet you don't seem to see any of it whatsoever.
Well, this is where I'm going to pull in my area of expertise at this point. And what struck me about this, what kind of hit home with me on this, is something that I've noticed that's a really, to me, it's a remarkable trend in deconversion, is that overwhelmingly the complaint that deconverts have about Christianity is the Bible. And at some point, they come to the sort of conclusion that this meme encapsulates, that the stories in the Bible are ridiculous, and therefore there is no God. Now, I mean, apparently that makes a lot of sense to them, but it makes sense because they come from a church environment where they are told that either they must believe in inerrancy or there is no God. You know, those are your options.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible or nothing. You know, and this is an argument that, you know, especially in these sort of 50 question things that we've done so much in the past in video format and in written format, this constantly comes up, what I call the problem of other religions. And the problem of other religions being that, hey, every religion thinks they're true, therefore none of them's true. Or, you know, if you'd been born elsewhere, you'd be a different religion, therefore all religions are false, kind of thing. As I've dug into the deconversion research, I've realized that a lot of this comes from the fact that you grow up in this church, and this church tells you, we are the true religion. We are the only religion. And so at the point that you come to where you say, well, I have a problem with this religion, therefore this religion is false, you know, you would think that, hey, you'd have these other religions open as a possibility still. But the fact is that your environment already debunked those religions for you. They set up for you a dichotomy, which is this religion or no religions. And once you come to the conclusion that this religion is false, you've already eliminated those other religions by virtue of the environment that you were in. You know, the environment set up that dichotomy, and you accepted the dichotomy, even though you rejected the religion. So once you decide that Christianity is false, you decide, you know, your only option left open to you is atheism, because the environment that you were in only gave you that option. And that's, you know, that I think is the origin of this particular objection, because the objection doesn't seem particularly strong to me to say that there are so many alternatives, therefore all of them are false. But if you take into account the church environment and the kind of dichotomy the church sets up for them, it makes a lot of sense.
Joe, does your research also include not just Christians, but Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses? Because I know a lot of people who leave those groups also become agnostics and atheists for similar reasons.
Yeah, no, you're right. I have created this concept, which I haven't put on paper yet, but I'll sort of tell you the theoretical concept as it bounces around in my head, that there is a spectrum from, say, let's call it a Unitarian church. Let's say that, you know, anything goes, you know, all options are open. You make your own truth, whatever. You know, it's a building you can meet in. Just accept everybody. And then the spectrum would go from that down to, say, a compound somewhere where you're not allowed to leave and you must listen to the prophet and everything they say. And, you know, any sort of dissension or, you know, independent thinking whatsoever is punished and you're ostracized. So those are your options. You've got total freedom on one end, total, what would you call it, libertarian freedom on one end, and like a complete enslavement to the organization on the other. And then everything in between is sort of a spectrum. And I create that concept to tell you this. The further you go away from the Unitarian side towards the, you know, compound cult side, the more deconversions you see coming from that area. However, and this is really interesting, what you see is a lot of migration that goes from the cult side up to the Unitarian side. Individuals migrate away from that cult and towards the Unitarian to the degree that they're able. Now, often the thing with cults and very fundamentalist environments, which kind of trend in that direction, are that they don't give you the option of migrating. You know, if you leave, you leave. It's us or nothing. And so you have this sort of instantaneous deconversion. With a church like I'm assuming all of we attend, there's a little bit more independence given to the members. And so there is sort of this, there's a tendency to be encouraged to think things through on your own. And so you're not completely ostracized if you happen to migrate to a different church. And so from there, you tend to migrate up in what I call leftward drift, because, your Unitarian church tends to be on the far left side of the spectrum, both theologically and politically. And so as leftward drift progresses, typically you tend to hit a point, and I've got a specific deconversion that I could use to illustrate this, where you realize that your particular philosophies, doctrines, and so forth don't require a God any longer. And when they don't require a God, you kind of tend to drop the God. And so either way, you're deconverting. You could deconvert from a cult and you just go straight into agnosticism or atheism, or you could migrate in the direction of deconversion by going leftward until you don't need God anymore. Oh, that makes sense, or anything I need to clarify there?
Makes sense to me.
Okay. I don't know if I clearly communicated what I just said, so any questions?
I think you were as clear as ever.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty clear.
All right.
Question is, where were we going next?
Well, I can do my Pascal's wager thing if you'd like.
Yeah, I guess since we don't have any more trolling to discuss.
Well, we can. That's
No,
the only thing that came to my mind. I have been doing a little trolling.
If a troll showed up,
I've been trolling the Filipino atheist a little bit on my own, but.
Well, I caused a little bit of a firestorm on my wall tonight. Making jokes about how, Christians are often said to be deniers of science. And sadly, in many cases, this is true. But I find the left, Christian and non-Christian both, seem to deny science, particularly in areas relating to the sexual revolution. When it comes to sex itself, where this is just like a recreational activity two people can do together, nothing sacred. It doesn't differ by kind from other activities, only by degree. When it comes to abortion, where this isn't a human in the mentality, it's like it might be a human, but it's not a human person. And suddenly philosophy comes to the forefront. And then when it comes to homosexuality, it's where, this is perfectly the same as ever. It's equal. I mean, yeah, maybe A doesn't go into B, and maybe it doesn't produce a baby, but it's still just equal. It's a working system just like any other. And then, of course, the whole transgender movement, where geez, if someone feels like they are the opposite gender, where they must be the opposite gender. And, of course, it's getting the usual kinds of responses, you would say. And notice I never said anything about the Bible or Christianity in any of that, but, geez, guess where everyone jumps to with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, it's an excellent point. I've actually been reading a book that covers that topic, Love That Body by Nancy Pearcey.
Oh, yeah.
Goes pretty extensively into it. Fantastic book.
Yeah. Yeah, I was part of the group that promoted that book when she released it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, in fact, I had her on my podcast actually. Back when she released it, so that we could promote it.
Wow!
I had her on my podcast
now
also.
we've promoted it on our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to hear an interview with Nancy Pearcey about her book, Love Thy Body, go check out the Pro Life Thinking podcast.
Wait, you have a
And go
podcast?
check out the Deeper Waters
Yeah.
podcast.
Whoa!
And check out
Who here doesn't have a podcast?
Did you interview her too, Nick?
Yeah, I interviewed her as well. But the thing is, though, when it comes to the area of sexuality, for a lot of skeptics out there, it seems reason goes out the window entirely. And we're told that we're ones who have such a low disdain for a view of it. I think, well, yeah, my view is it's something absolutely sacred. How do you get higher than that view?
Yeah, and to make it lower denies the science behind it, which I think is part of what you were getting at. Is we're shown that there are certain chemical reactions that occur within the body and within the brain in that act, and it's something that triggers very specific chemicals, and you can't to say it's not. It's something that's anything less than sacred or anything less than a significant emotional event. It really does take away from what we see scientifically.
Yeah, and something I also said, where someone said, well, a lot of Christians also deny climate change. And I said, look, here's the thing, though. I remember growing up, and the big thing wasn't climate change. It was becoming ice age. That was
that's technically a change in climate. Just putting that out there.
Yeah. And,
I think you mean global warming.
Yeah. And then how many times has the government said, by such and such date, we are going to run out of oil? And every single time it's been wrong. And I say, well, here's the difference. You are on the left, you look at the prophets on the right, the people who claim to be Christians, and prophets, they prophesying when the world is going to come to an end, and you mock them because they've been wrong every time. And yet, on the other side, your predictions have been wrong every time, and that gets accepted. I'm consistent in my opinion. I reject the prophets on the right and the left as prophets of doom every single time.
Hey, on Facebook, David Russell is trying to spread a nasty rumor about you, Nick.
Which one's that?
It's right there on the screen.
I see it. Yes, David. I definitely do affirm the virgin birth. Unlike our friend David Paulman, who's an open theistic Calvinistic presuppositionalist, who I haven't heard affirm the virgin birth, which I do affirm.
Hold up. Is open theism compatible with Calvinism?
Yeah, somehow he is when he's an open theistic Calvinistic presuppositions. I mean, David Russell does a chat with him. He can tell you that. And David Russell, isn't that right about your partner apostatize or proselytize that he's an open theistic Calvinistic presuppositionalist?
We'll see what
one of those things does
David
not belong. One of those things is not like the other.
And for listeners who may not know, we had a Christmas special back a month ago, back at Christmas time. So if you want to see where this conversation was before tonight, go check that out. Here we go.
We just got confirmation there.
Yeah. Well, there you go, Joel. Your contradiction's out there. So,
all right.
Maybe we need to bring him on this show so he can take these heretic accusations from Nick and either confirm them or deny them.
Well, you have to pull him away from his coloring books, but it could be possible, I guess.
We will see.
Speaking of denying, you know what I heard Nick denies?
The virgin birth?
Accusations that he denies the virgin birth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
How does he deny them?
We were thinking of doing a podcast with proselytize or apostatize on eschatology, but we haven't arranged a time for it, so it could come at any moment whatsoever when we decide to do this podcast. There's no telling when it will happen.
You mean like the rapture?
That's what I was thinking too.
What's a rapture?
It's the name of an underwater city in a game called BioShock.
Now you're talking my language.
Oh, never played Bioshock.
Had to
You
appeal
missed
to the
out.
nerds of the audience. BioShock is actually an extremely complex and artful piece of storytelling.
Is it a first person?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then I wouldn't play it.
But it's not a typical one.
Because I don't. You could just never really get into first person shooters.
Have
You've
You've never played Bioshock.
No, I never played Bioshock, but I used to play James Bond GoldenEye with a friend back when the Nintendo 64 was still out, and so that was kind of fun. But
awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. But yeah, first person shooters just really aren't for me.
So you must hate art too.
Oh no, I don't hate art.
Well, then you can't reject Bioshock like this.
Yeah, it's just a thing that just goes so deep in terms of storytelling and artistry. When I say that, like the amount of detail put into every environment and how each detail contributes to the overall story is pretty amazing. There's because a video game is something you interact with.
Yeah.
It's immersive. It's like no other kind of storytelling.
Yeah, I saw that comment. Yeah, I mean, I played GoldenEye, but I'm even older than that. I come from the days of the NES.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No first person shooters, but I remember playing Mario, Zelda, Contra, those kinds of games.
Which, you ever read any Ayn Rand?
No, I have never read Ayn Rand.
Oh, okay. Do you know who that is?
I do. Yeah, she wrote Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah,
and
there was some of that borrowed for Bioshock.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up playing those NES games too. But what do you mean no first-person shooters? I mean, didn't you ever play Duck Hunt?
Oh yeah, there was Duck Hunt. Yeah, I always regretted you couldn't shoot that stupid dog.
Oh, everybody did.
Right.
Yeah, I tried to shoot him multiple times.
There's there's a real market out there for a sequel to Duck Hunt where you actually just shoot the dog, or you hunt the dog,
right,
for the entire game.
Yeah, miss the duck on purpose so he can laugh.
I can see why that'd be popular.
Take a shot at him. Yeah, actually.
The ever one you'd love to attack though would be Navi in the Ocarina of Time. I wish I could just take him and cut him off to pieces. Listen! Watch out! Listen! Hey! Listen!
Yeah, so I don't have a preference when it comes to the type of video game system because I actually kind of had a weird childhood because we had NES when I was a kid, but then rather than upgrade to Super NES when the new generation of consoles came out, for some reason our parents picked us up a Sega Genesis. So I went from Mario to Sonic, and then after the Sega Genesis, eventually I got a PlayStation, and then PlayStation 2 was actually the very first game console I ever bought for myself, and now I play on an Xbox. So I kind of run the gamut when it comes to video game systems.
There was something important you left out there. Did you not have a Dreamcast at any point?
I never had a Dreamcast.
But
if we're talking about annoying characters, definitely you have to mention.
We see you, all right, Nick. We see you.
Whenever you play Super Mario World 2, you have to keep the remote control nearby because whenever baby Mario starts crying, you reach for that mute button immediately.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing here is that we need to crowdfund a game which is like the story The Most Dangerous Game, where you just sequentially hunt down all the annoying video game characters from your childhood and kill them.
I'd buy it.
Yeah.
I think we have a hit on our hands.
There we go.
All this talk is making me think we should start a Twitch channel.
That'd be good.
Yeah, that would be cool.
We need to have people who can make good Christian video games, because let's face it, most Christian material, be it in the media, be it video games or movies or TV shows, it's not good. It only goes out to the choir and other Christians. I mean, I watched a video yesterday at a Saber Spark on YouTube did about about a movie based on Finding Nemo called Finding Jesus, about how awful it was.
Well, clearly
sadly,
you've
this
never
is a
played
consistent
Dante's
thing.
Inferno, the video game.
I actually understand the guy who made Five Nights at Freddy's is a Christian as well.
See, here's my thing about creating good Christian content.
Mhm.
Be a Christian and create good content. That's it.
Yeah.
Since
That's
You know,
how it worked
it-
back
it-
in the day when Christians were on the cusp of art and literature.
You know, if we wanted to do something like this, maybe we could also bring on for a show someone like Kevin Shute, who wrote the book of Games and God, professor, I think, Trinity, and I interviewed him on my show. And honestly, his book was so good. It was one of those books that when I got to the end, I was actually surprised I got to the end because I hadn't even been keeping track of it. I was like, oh, this is it. I mean, that's a rarity for me. And I think it'd be very interesting to talk with him about Christianity and video games.
yeah,
That'd be cool, especially given the nerd leanings of this broadcast. That might be a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go, folks. We have a recommendation from Apostatize or Apostatize for a phone game called Testament, where you can kill Romans and meet saints. Do the saints
Boy.
say things like it's dangerous to go along alone? Take this. And it's like the sword of the spirit, or
Oh, that'd be awesome.
You know, it would have to be. There's no other way it could go that would be quite as entertaining.
And, you know, just in case you folks at home don't know, we do zero preparation for these shows. It just happens, as you can tell.
I don't think they needed to be told that.
Yeah. Here we were going to talk about Pascal's wager, and instead we ended up reminiscing of old video games.
Yeah.
Do you actually get crucified in the game? Like, is that just a line from you, or is that something that actually happens in the game? I have to know now.
I'm still wondering.
Yes,
Wow.
apparently you can get crucified in the game. That wow.
I think I'm
Okay.
gonna have to download this game just to see what it's like.
New Testament.
I guess that game's just got 4 new subscribers.
Right.
Oh, 5, including our listener.
Yeah. Well.
That guy.
All right. Well, on that note, you know what New Testament really needs?
What is
Some
that?
Pascal's wager.
Whoa, you got something there, bruh. All right,
I
so
thought it
Pascal's
needed
wager.
an affirmation of a virgin birth, which I do affirm.
All
Probably
right,
use
before
that.
I talk about my rethinking of Pascal's wager, does one of you fine, intelligent gentlemen want to give the audience a summary of what Pascal's wager is?
Well, Pascal went into a bar one night, and there was a poker game going on, and he made a really bad bet on the outcome of it, and it's been known as Pascal's wager ever since.
An epically bad bet, huh?
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure we want to, pair Pascal's wager with a bad bet necessarily.
Hey, he didn't pay properly the cards he was dealt.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was the fun version of Pascal's wager. Clinton, you're the philosopher. You want to...
Well, I haven't actually read Conseil in its entirety, and I'm a little hesitant to talk too much about Pascal's wager because most of the people who talk about it either defending it or critiquing it have never actually read Ponce, and you can tell just in the way that they defend it. I have read articles which defend Pascal's wager, but I can talk about it. Just bear in mind that I haven't actually read Ponce, so I might be getting some of the nuances incorrect. But
right, you don't know what you're talking about. Go on.
Okay, so Pascal, of course, Blaise Pascal was a mathematician, I believe, and he was actually writing a work of apologetics, but unfortunately he died before the book could ever actually be published, before it could be finished and be published. And so posthumously, the fragments of this book that he was trying to work on got collected into one collection called Ponce, which I believe is the French word for fragments or something along those lines. What's that?
Fox. Ponce, it means to think. Ponce is a French word for fox, then. And
Okay,
I actually have read all Ponce's.
Okay, well, Nick would probably be a better person to defend it than I would.
Yeah, I just asked him, and it didn't go so well.
Oh, that's true. You did.
Yeah,
Okay,
his opportunity was gone.
I'll give you accurate version this time, Ben. That the Ponce's is really kind of a collection of thoughts put together from Pascal. It's in my mind, it's seemingly random. I mean, maybe there's some purpose behind it, but to me, it looks random. But the wager is a part of it that he's most well known for. And in it, a lot of people misdiagnose or think, well, Pascal is saying, you might as well be a Christian because, hey, you got nothing to lose and everything to gain. But what about all these other religions? Now, Pascal's wager was given instead to someone who was sitting on the fence saying, I'm not sure if I should be a Christian or a non-Christian. And Pascal says, well, if you're not sure, just try this. Try living it like it's true. What do you have to lose? Nothing. If Christianity is false and there is no God, you die, you've lost nothing. But if it's true, you die and you gain everything. On the other hand, if you choose to deny Christianity and it's true, you die, you lose everything. So if you're going to make a bet on the side of Christianity. Like I said, if someone says, well, what about Islam or what about Buddhism, all these other things, Pascal's not asking that question. He's dealing with one specific topic, and he's not dealing with all the others.
Okay. So that's Pascal's wager. Pascal was a mathematician, so in a sense that, this is a kind of thing that would make sense to a logician or a mathematician, is that, there's two items out there. If you're going to bet on one, the odds are better in one direction than the other. Now, unfortunately, it seems like Pascal's wager is frequently taken as an argument for Christianity. And so it is pretty derided in atheist circles. And I don't know of too many honestly, when I hear it as an argument for Christianity, it tends to be one of those things that you hear coming from, I don't know, like
Ray Comfort? Or...
Yeah, there you go. Like Ray Comfort. Like somebody who is not invested to a great degree into apologetics at a sophisticated level at the risk of being insulting. And so
I think that describes Ray Comfort pretty well. I would not consider him an apologist, even though he does try to do apologetics. He usually does it pretty bad. I would consider him a really good evangelist. I think he excels as an evangelist, but as an apologist, no, definitely not.
All right,
but he definitely has a gift as an evangelist.
I hear, I think that some evangelists, let's call them, at sort of a lay level, come up with this on their own without actually having ever heard of Pascal. Well, they'd be like, "Hey, you're going to lose everything if you don't come to Christian. So what have you got to lose?" kind of thing. So, yeah. Anyway, the reason that I'm bringing it up at all is because I've had several discussions. Actually, no, I was brought on a podcast. Again, this was a Philippine podcast. I really have no idea what happened with me in the Philippines, but I was invited by this gentleman to.
What is the reason the Philippines are so obsessed with you?
I don't know, but the name of the podcast is.
No, I'm wondering if maybe people in the Philippines just really like American podcasts, because I actually received an email from a podcasting site that like keeps track of what's popular in various countries, and my pro-life podcast, Pro-Life Thinking, was actually like ranked 7th amongst political podcasts in the Philippines. So I wonder if it's just Philippine people like American podcasts or what. I don't know.
In answer to your question, proselytize or apostatize, yes, it was Elmo. Yeah, he invited me on his podcast, and I didn't know anything about him. I assumed he was inviting me because I'd been invited on several podcasts in rapid succession on the deconversion research I did. So I came on expecting to, talk about that, but he just wanted to interview me about my religious positions. And okay. All right. Yeah, proselytize or apostatize lets me know that he was also invited on Elmo's World. But yeah, anyway. No tickling. It's a podcast. Get your mind back in the game.
Okay, where are we going with this?
The reason that I bring that up is that, he wanted to interview me as a person that the audience didn't know, and he didn't know whether I was a Christian or what my view was. So he asked, and I said I was a Christian. And so he asked why I was a Christian. And I had to kind of give, and so I have a 3-factor sort of, a 3-leg stool, let's call it, that I build my particular beliefs on. And one is Christ, Jesus, the historical case for the resurrection, which, if true, would be sufficient reason for me to be a Christian. The other is, there's a name for it, but I don't know the name, so I'll describe it just a little bit. It's this idea that the universe only rationally makes sense as a product of the mind, meaning that the rational faculties I have to comprehend the universe can only exist in the presence of rationality. The logic that I use, and imagination and beauty and all of these things we've talked about, these sort of abstracts, make the most sense if product of mind. And it would have to be a mind that transcends or precedes the universe. I could go into a great deal with that, but that's the general idea. Nick, you told me what the name of that was? What is that?
And where the anthropic principle, it usually applies, it could be applied here as where it normally applies to scientific thinking, but I think it's very similar on a philosophical level too.
What I'm saying is that, to a degree, it kind of resembles presuppositionalism only insofar as there are these things that I perceive, including perception, rationality, logic, beauty, all of these abstracts, morality that I know to exist and can perceive with my mind, but they only make sense if products of a mind that is larger than the universe, if you will. So, to me, the universe and life makes the most sense if product of mind. And so that's the second leg of my stool, which makes theism rational to me. And so, in the absence of evidence for Jesus, or evidence against the resurrection, I might have to no longer be a Christian, but I would still be a theist because of the rationality of the universe and the existence of transcendent entities, if you will. So that's the second leg of the stool. And the third leg of the stool is essentially Pascal's wager, meaning that if I were to suddenly come to the conclusion at the end of my life that all of the values that I held were grounded in nothing, that there was in fact no God, no Jesus, nothing like that, I would not regret my life, because I lived as if there was a God, and if I were to discover that there wasn't, I have no regrets about the way I lived. You know, the foundation for those values may be gone, but the values remain, and nothing about life is regrettable. As far as, you know, it's possible, you know, there's a possible world in which I radically change my mind and decide, hey, why didn't I go out and, you know, take up drinking and, I don't know, sleep around and all of those things, which I don't do now because of the standards I hold. But I live a very fulfilled life.
GoldenEye too.
Yeah. My point is that I've lost nothing in acting as if there was a God. There is nothing to regret on that. And that is the bedrock beneath all of those other things. That's sort of the safety net, I guess. Probably a bad way of describing it, but that's the bottom of the ditch. If I dig down that far, I still do not regret having lived as a Christian. Whereas if I had gone the other route, if I had lived as if there was no God and done, you know, whatever came into my head, I don't know, whatever atheists do that I don't. If I had lived like that and then discovered that there was a God, I would have regrets. But living as if there is a God and discovering there isn't, I have no regrets. And that's my thoughts on the Pascal's wager.
Yeah, that's a good thought on it, because I think one thing as well is what reason, I guess, to flip it around as a question going kind of the other way, is what good reason is there from a utilitarian standpoint to even be an atheist over a Christian? Because I don't know of anything that I would do as an atheist that isn't that is something I would a good reason for me to be an atheist, because I want to do XYZ.
Yeah, so that's, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is something I've noticed in my deconversion research as well, is that, and this is something we talked about when we talked about the movie Paul, is that oftentimes when people deconvert, they go off the rails and they do a lot of things that they would not have done otherwise because of their religion. And, you know, the most obvious example is cuss words, profanity. You know, one of the consistent things across the board, every time I hear a deconvert being interviewed about their deconversion, they're throwing F-bombs and, you know, every word they can into every sentence as much as they possibly can. They're really trying to cram the profanity in there. And, you know, I actually asked one about this, and like, yeah, I wasn't I wasn't allowed to do it before. Now I'm free to. There's no reason not to. You know, and just to make sure I wasn't importing some sort of presupposition into that, I did a frequency check. I listened to sort of a what do you call it? Unchained comedy show, Unleashed. I don't know what the correct term is. But basically one of these comedy shows where, you know, the comedian could say what they wanted and there wasn't any kind of censor on there. And I did a frequency check of the profanity in that, you know, 30-minute show. And then I listened to one of these interviews shows with deconverts and did a profanity frequency check in there as a comparison, and they came out about even. So, just to give you an idea. So, profanity is obviously one. Sexual promiscuity, very frequently, that's the case. So for instance, one of the earliest interviews I ever listened to, the woman had gone on and to take a very successful career as a dominatrix after deconverting and leaving her husband. And divorce is very common in post deconversion. And then, oftentimes, especially the women, for whatever reason, they go off and they start having multiple partners in brief periods of time post deconversion. So that's a thing that happens. Drinking. The guy who was the lead for Caedmon's Call, blanking on his name, but Clinton, you would know.
For Caedmon's Call, Derek Webb.
Yeah, Derek Webb. He developed a big drinking habit after his deconversion. He wasn't the only one, but my point is that this is another thing you see. So yeah, to your point, Caleb, yes, there is a tendency. You know what I mean? This is something you hear, sort of a cliche on the Christian side, be like, oh, without God, you could go out and do whatever you wanted, and all things are permissible and so forth. And the atheists are frequently to say, no, I mean, I have values, I have standards, I have morals. This is a Christian strongman that atheists just go out and do whatever they want. But there is some truth to it. But that, the argument from the other side would be that Christianity is unnecessarily repressive, especially sexually.
Mm-hmm.
And that this sort of sexual repression, I've heard them sit there and talk about how damaging it is that Christians are against divorce, and how this leaves women in abusive partnerships, and also men in emotionally abusive partnerships if their needs are not being met emotionally by their partner, and so on and so forth, because they're kind of against this sort of thing. So divorces, sexual behaviors, occasionally substance abuse, definitely profanity. These are things that one sees as after post deconversion.
And
I kind of think I should explain something here for those who are watching. Introduction to the fifth guest on our show tonight. My cat Shiro suddenly decided that he wanted to be in on the program and contributing. So if you're watching and seeing this adorable little fuzzball I'm petting, that's my kitty Shiro.
Well, we are mighty glad to have them on. That
he
raises.
has much more to contribute than Clinton does anyway.
What's that?
He has much more to contribute than Clinton does anyway.
Well, yeah.
What I was going to say.
I definitely agree with what you are saying, because I notice when people leave Christianity, lo and behold, this is exactly what happens. And I'd seen the same thing with profanity as well. That so many ex-Christians I meet, they're actually still very much controlled by Christianity, at least their perception of it. They don't even realize it. But it's like they're living in teenage rebellion against it. They're doing these things, I think, just because Christianity said no about them.
Who's your friend, the Jesus mythicist that likes to get kicked out of atheist conferences for hitting on married women?
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. You are talking about, let's see, Richard Carrier, the unemployed polyamorous prominent internet blogger who's banned from Skepticon.
Yeah, that guy, Richard Carrier. So he's an example of what I wanted to bring up next, is that frequently, I've talked about in my model, I've talked about stressors, things that sort of increase the probability of deconversion. And a change in sexual behavior is a stressor. And for him, that was the case. And for Derek Webb, that was the case because he began having an affair prior to his deconversion. And another example for this would be Rachel Slick, who's the daughter of Matt Slick, the director of CARM, which is a apologetics. And so she very famously came out in, I was like 2013-ish as an atheist. And that got a lot of play among the atheists because it's always a cause of celebration when somebody connected to apologetics deconverts. But the thing with her,
Tim Sledge is another example of a book. Goodbye Jesus used to be a minister, started having an affair with someone, had an emotional affair first with someone, been with someone else. He had an actual physical affair, and lo and behold, he became an atheist.
So what happens in those instances is this: the stressor makes it the idea of deconversion attractive, right? So you're in this position where, I use Rachel Slick as an example because she wrote about it and I read about it, so I have a better idea of what happened in there, the course of events. But she was in college. She'd come from a very sort of like a homeschoolish, sort of restrictive religious environment where she didn't have a lot of exposure outside of that religious environment. And so she went to college and she got a boyfriend. She started sleeping with her boyfriend, and there was a lot of guilt there. You know, she describes feeling as if she was hanging over the fires of hell. Yeah, I don't think. Okay. Yeah, Mikhail is talking about the noise that's going on. That's probably your cat running around the desk or whatnot. Nick, that's making the noise on the mic.
Maybe. That another case like that comes to mind is Don Johnson has a book, How to Talk to a Skeptic. In one chapter in Burke, he talked about this kid in the church's youth group that was coming up to the leader constantly asking him all these questions about what about this in Christianity, trying to like poke holes in it. Finally, at one point, now Don Johnson, he normally doesn't recommend this, but finally at one point, this guy turned to the student and said, "How long have you been sleeping with your girlfriend?" And the kid just turned white as a ghost immediately, and that's exactly what the issue was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in her case, again, she was sleeping with her boyfriend, and then in the testimony she gives, like when she wrote the thing out, she says, one day I came up with this question and it was unanswerable, and that's when I deconverted. And she makes it sound like it was this sort of rapid thing. And then she's like, and that was such a relief because now I can sleep with my boyfriend, kind of thing. Now, she threw the boyfriend thing in as just a factor in the story. She didn't make it revolve around that. I'm doing that because, in my model, that seemed like the factor that had most changed between, when she wasn't asking those questions and when she was. Nick?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Nick?
Yes.
Could you mute yourself when you're not talking?
Okay.
Thank you. All right, and that's gone. All right, good. I was pretty sure it was you, Nick, because there was this. Mikhail is complaining that sounds like somebody is chewing on the mic. So,
all right, that does sound better. So I think we're good.
Fantastic. All right. Anyway, getting back to that. So yeah, this placed pressure on her. She came up with a question that she couldn't answer, quote unquote. And, and this has been her question has been thoroughly addressed by her father and other apologists since the article came out in 2013. This was years ago now. And, the question wasn't particularly challenging in retrospect, but it served as what I would call a trigger that gave her permission to begin asking those questions and kicked off the deconversion process. And so, yeah, the point that I'm making there is we were talking about changes in behavior post deconversion. And the point I'm making is that sometimes the change in behavior is what prompts the deconversion. Caleb, you had told me a story about, when you started sort of probing at Christianity, you were motivated to do so for personal reasons.
That's
if
right.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, your example kind of reminds me of that thing. You began asking the questions because you were motivated to do so for other factors. And Caleb was not doing cheating on his wife or doing anything sexually. Just to put that out there for the audience.
Yeah, in my experience, it was a loss of a loved one. My dad passed away. He was the strong spiritual figure in my life, and when he died, it prompted a lot of questioning as I went through the grief. And I was certainly struggling with alcohol abuse at the time as well, just trying to self-medicate. And as I came through that, that's when I started to question and wanted to know whether or not it was true. So, yeah, so it was definitely a lot of personal things that triggered the questioning. I think that's a very safe assumption. And based on friends I've had and the situations that have played out in their lives, I'm afraid that that's definitely been what I've seen as well.
So when I've talked about stressors in the past for deconversion, I apologize for turning every show into a deconversion thing. If you guys want me to shut up on that, I will. But I'll keep talking until somebody gives me the signal. Yeah, so I've said that your stressors are set up by your priors in the religious environment, and so the reason that the sort of sexual behavior that Rachel Slick had was a stressor for her was because the religious environment that she came out of had, basically counterindicated that kind of behavior. That behavior was being punished by the sort of laws or rules that governed her religion. And so it was the rule that was punishing the behavior, and therefore she was trying to escape the punishment associated with that rule, if that makes sense. And I'm speaking in sort of behavioral terms here. The punishment was implicit in the rule that was given, even if not explicit in some literal punishment that she was receiving. But, the rule itself was punishing, and therefore the belief system was punishing, and she had reason to try to want to escape that belief system. Every time I say things like this, I almost feel like I'm falling into a cliche, because you do hear this. You hear like preachers say, well, they just wanted to live like they wanted, and that's why they rejected God and everything. And, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to put this in term, but it does sound a lot like that. Now, I would not want to paint all atheists with that broad brush. And I think that's probably the mistake made when people do that, fall back on these cliches, is that, they may be revealing truth about particular instances, but it's not true of every atheist. Not everyone deconverts because they just want to go out and live like they want.
And ironically, that kind of cliched statement, especially within a church environment, would seem to just reinforce legalism of it being more about behavior than about relationship and salvation.
Yeah, no, that's a fair thought, because, as I said, the environment sometimes creates the problem. And so if the person is hearing that, people become atheists because they want to go out and live like they want, and then the person experiences a problem where church is not in line with the things that they want to do, they've already been set up to say that, it's either behave or be an atheist. So that either or has been set in front of them there on the table. And, that would tend to influence behavior. So, if anything, my research has shown me that, the church sets up people for deconversion by establishing certain boundaries, which, when pressed upon, become stressors. Now, don't take that as advice to the church. I think that any sort of advice or changes that might be necessary within the church to avoid deconversion would have to be thought out prior rather than just sort of assumed based on what I'm saying here. These are data that need to be taken and considered by the church, probably, but I don't want anybody leaping to some kind of conclusion because of that.
And that's fair. To bring this kind of back around to Pascal's wager a little bit, just in mentioning those things you did about behavior that comes either during or after the deconversion, it's bizarre to me because in the short term, I can see how someone would react from a sense of repression and how they may act on that. But looking back for a long view of life, even if I look back as far as I can, I've never looked back and thought, wow, I wish I had slept around with all these people, or I wish I had, drank more, or I wish I had cursed in this conversation rather than, being very careful about choosing my words. Long view, I don't even see how for an atheist, most of them are going to look back on these things as something positive or something that, they wish they hadn't done without. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, everything that you have experienced in your life, including you thinking about the words I'm saying right now, happens in the past. We live entirely from memory. And so, it might feel as if I'm living in the moment when I, blurt out cuss words in the middle of a conversation and, laugh at my cleverness in doing so. But, even that exists in the past because, I don't know about it until I've already experienced it. Now, I say all of this because our memories can be influenced. The things that we, how we see the past is influenced by our current perception and ideas. And so, I have seen deconverts have a very happy Christian life, and then post deconversion look back on it and pick it apart for the negative things, and that becomes a very negative experience for them. And I've talked about this on previous episodes where, once you go through a change of heart, whether it's becoming a Christian or becoming an atheist, you reinterpret everything that's happened to the past by the lens of your current worldview. And, that would happen in anything. If you became, say, a Democrat instead of a Republican, if you became a Hindu instead of a atheist, whatever, whenever you go through a state change, and Caleb, you've seen people convert to cults. So you've had some experience of the state change that people go through. Their memories, their lives prior to the state change become different than they were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You even see it with things like, death of a loved one or birth of a child. It alters how you saw things before. Well, it didn't seem like you had much time before you had kids. Then you realize how much time you really had and were wasting. Or, with loved ones, when they pass away, we have a tendency to, a lot of times, kind of forget a lot of the negative memories and just feel some of these positive memories. So it, it happens with any of these kind of major state changes.
Yep. So, yeah. And, that was addressing your point of, you can't imagine thinking back on your life and saying, I wish I'd cussed more. But there is a sense in which you might as a different person in the future, look back on your life and, think of yourself as being repressed because you did censor yourself in conversations. So for instance, I can look back on my teenage self and in light of my current self and realize how little confidence I had and how my life as a high schooler would have been so much different if I knew and act and behaved the way I do now back then. I'm sure we all could think about it. Probably all do that. But, my point is that, yeah, you could end up regretting things which were unregrettable at the time. In psychology, we call this phenomenology. And phenomenology is the idea that a person perceives things in the moment differently than they do as memories. And so, ideally, as an interviewer or somebody studying the case of a person, I would love to know exactly how they were experiencing the thing at the time versus as them recollecting it to me. And so, phenomenologists will sometimes interview the same person multiple times, at separate periods and about the same thing. And then they take the interviews and they try to pick out the common factors in order to sort of reconstruct what the experience would have actually been like at the time they were experiencing it. So phenomenology is a difficult science in terms of reconstructing an experience.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yep. Now, who's this guy?
Yeah, I know. We had a name change. Welcome back, sir.
It's Nick Peters' identical twin, Pete Nickers.
All right.
I'm going to sign off for the evening here because it's getting late here on the East Coast. But before I go, I figured I'd go ahead and tell how people can find more about me. I'm at deeperwatersapologetics.com. I'm on Facebook. Pretty much everywhere you want to look on social media, you'll find me somewhere. And I affirm the virgin birth.
We're glad to hear it, Nick. Oh, in case you're looking after you leave,
Right.
don't miss out on this the U Testament. So there you go, Nick. There's your takeaway. Be sure to check out the U Testament.
Oh, it's coming out in 2D as well?
Okay.
Apparently so. So
ooh, I was waiting for the 2D version.
Look at that, 4.3 stars. That's
ooh, nice.
Yeah, I know, right?
Maybe I'll download it to my phone and play it on my trip tomorrow.
Or you could live stream you playing it with commentary on YouTube.
I could. I'm not sure how I do that though. Would I do it through Twitch?
Oh,
it's
done. I just don't know how people do it.
Okay, because I do have an account on Twitch, but I've never done any streaming yet. But I actually have a philosopher friend who is considering streaming, playing games, and talking about philosophy. And I would actually, enjoy doing something similar to that.
Yeah.
But I don't really have the equipment to stream. At least outside things. I might be able to stream games on my laptop through Twitch, but I have games on the Xbox that I'd like to stream at some point too.
I just realized that my phone, when I hook it into my computer can project the screen of my phone on the desktop, and I've actually played phone games on my desktop using my mouse, just because because I could. Shut up! Don't judge me.
No problem.
And since the live stream here allows me to share my computer screen, I can share my phone screen on my computer and my computer screen on our stream, and then we could do that.
We could play the U Testament. I love it.
That's right. We could do it live and comment as we do.
That could be fun, although we will have to put out a parental advisory because apparently this is rated M for mature.
What?
Rated M for mature.
Must
That
be all
may
the
roll us out instantly.
must be all the killing of Romans and crucifixions and whatnot.
Yeah. I would imagine that's at least part of it.
Yeah.
And all the F-bombs they drop.
All right,
if
guys.
If you're being nailed to a cross, I think you could probably be forgiven for dropping an F-bomb.
And by which I mean fundamentalist.
Oh, okay.
Not that one. So, we have got a clip to watch.
Okay.
Let me get this loaded up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you want to. If not, we can skip it and go straight to the final segment. But
we can watch the clip.
All right. Well, we will put out that parental advisory on this one because it does have some strong language. But I've been thinking about this one today, so I'll be interested to get y'all's thoughts on it. I had a friend send this to me this morning. Me?
Clinton, what state are you in right now?
The state of confusion. Actually, I'm in California.
Oh, okay.
Why do you ask?
Oh, because you're nomadic. You're always moving around.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, here we go. I don't know a lot of the background behind this. You may know a little bit more than me on this one, Clinton, but
this is actually the first I've heard of it. After you mentioned you had this clip you wanted to play, I was looking at Facebook and actually saw that conservative philosopher Robert P. George posted about it, shared his thoughts on it. So yeah, I just learned about it a few minutes before we started this podcast.
All right. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. You've got a group of who appear to be pro-choice advocates who are getting ready to walk in and interrupt a mass. So be aware, if there are children in the room, you may want to skip ahead a bit. There's some foul language in this clip. So here we go.
This church teaches hate. Excuse me. Catholic setting dicks. Rose the floor, demand more. Row is the floor. We demand more. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. Don't touch me. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. Let go! Get the fuck out!
Let's go. Get off.
Get off!
Get off.
Your church is a fucking hate church! So funny that you teach the love of life when you teach people to hate and you harass clinics and you scare clinic providers and their families. You're violent and your language is violent. 2, 4, 6, 8. This church teaches hate. Don't fucking touch.
So there you go.
There are many things that I'd like to say about that. The highlight of that episode.
Let me stop this ad from playing. Stop. Why does YouTube just want to keep playing? Okay. I can hear now.
The highlight of that episode, or that video for me, was when she politely asked the gentleman in the aisle to excuse her as she was moving past, scooting through the aisle, and said, "Oh, excuse me," and then got to the other side of the aisle and started rushing up and screaming about hatred and so forth. That was the best part to me. I like how the other people with her didn't know what to say until she'd said it, and then they echoed her. I feel like she'd said it enough so that, and of course, everything that rhymes with 8 is true. That's why we put 2, 4, 6, 8 before a chant.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, back when I played baseball in elementary school, 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we really hate?
Yeah. Appreciate and hate both rhyme with 8, which makes it a very useful letter.
Right. Yeah, another highlight was these people who go and disrupt a mass, and then when they try to have them removed, they're like, "Don't touch me!" It's like, what do you expect to happen? You can't disrupt a church service and then lay claim to no one being able to touch you to have you removed.
Well, I think that was probably a strategy ahead of time. I mean, you can be as disruptive as you like with the knowledge that if anybody puts their hands on you, that you can bring that as as something against them, which is among the reasons that, there is no fear running into a public place and saying things like that, because if somebody comes up and tries to put their hands on you, you've got a fallback that you can go to, which is you're violating me by touching me.
Yeah, but I doubt that would hold up in court if they tried to sue them over that.
But neither does 2, 4, 6, 8, this church teaches hate, hold up in court if they're trying to bring the church down. It's a tactic, which is not a legal one.
Well, no, I'm not.
And neither is that "don't touch me."
No, I'm not. I'm not saying it was a legal tactic.
Right. But when, you said the "don't touch me" thing. The "don't touch me" is an instant sort of shaming tactic. It is turning to the person and saying, "I'm offended," or "you're violating me," or something. It's a tactic that works on an instantaneous person-to-person level, not a legal level. Necessarily.
Right, no, I'm saying it, I don't think it would hold up in court if they were going to try to bring suit over that. They laid their hands on me against my, I didn't consent to it. They were violating me by touching me. I don't think that would hold up in court because they were interrupting the service.
Yeah, but I don't think they said it because of a legal instance. I think they said it because it was a convenient thing to say at the time.
No, I didn't say that's why they were saying it. I was just saying I thought that was amusing to me that they would,
right, that they would do that while being removed.
Yeah, as if they had no expectation that someone would try to have them removed.
That was the other thought I had. As she's being sort of removed from the thing, she starts shouting out all these things, which I think she had planned to say. Those were the things she'd rehearsed in front of the mirror that morning prior to coming in. And she wanted to make sure to get them out prior to, be exiting the doors of the church.
Right. Yeah. Because they were caught up in the moment to say anything else when they were up front.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't find background on this, but my guess is from some of the dialogue, it sounded as if maybe this church and people within it maybe were the ones who had been outside an abortion clinic recently. I know in our area, we see, I think 40 Days for Life is a Catholic, largely Catholic run movement. And so I see them outside one of the local clinics here, particularly, I think it is around this time. Is it around this time of year, Clinton, when they have 40 Days for Life? Do you know?
Um, yeah, I'm not sure about 40 Days for Life specifically. But it is about this time when we start having the various marches and walks for life and that kind of thing. But yeah, 40 Days for Life. I'm not sure specifically what time of the what ports during the year that usually comes around.
Okay, looks like February 17th or March 28th. I was able to look it up. So, yeah, so close to this time of year. So I wonder if this wasn't an attempt to mimic or mock people who show up at the clinics and hold signs and that sort of thing. Because I saw one of the ladies was wearing what looked like one of the Planned Parenthood escort blue vest things.
Yeah,
So
this is out of my realm. So.
Okay. Yeah. So, what do you think about it being with that assumption? What do you think about this as a response? Is it parallel to the people outside of clinics who show up, hold up signs, talk to people while they're going into the clinics? Is this a good parallel?
Well, it depends. When you go out to a Planned Parenthood, there can be different kinds of people. You have the pro-life people who act as sidewalk counselors, in which they try to talk to women who are considering having an abortion, try to talk them out of their abortion, and they do it on a personal level, where they actually approach the woman who is planning to go inside to have an abortion and just talk to her, get to know her, try to interact on a personal level, and try to offer her resources. And then you get other people who are there just there to pray, or they're there just to kind of stand and hold signs. And then, of course, sometimes you do get the more extreme pro-life people who go there to yell at the women, calling them names and that kind of thing, or even if they're not trying to call them names, they're just yelling out at them. That's still even if they're not calling them names specifically, it still is intimidating to the woman who's going in for an abortion. So yeah. So this kind of thing with the pro-abortion protesters going into the church, it's it's just like the extreme pro-life people who stand out and yell at the women going in for abortions. You're not doing anything productive by doing that. You're just kind of making a fool of yourself, even though they think they're doing something good. Of course, they were filming themselves, so obviously they thought they were doing something good for the movement. But I guarantee you, no one in that church is rethinking their position on anything. If anything, that kind of behavior is just going to solidify them more into their pro-life position and whatever other positions they hold, that kind of thing.
I think it would be very foolish to make the case that they thought they were going to sway some minds by running into the church like that. The fact that they were live streaming themselves doing that probably was a tactic to sort of embolden their side, we stood up against these Christian bullies, and here's a video of us doing that kind of, it was a call across the aisle, not across the aisle, within the aisle, to themselves. It was done for the sake of their movement, not necessarily for the sake of people outside their movement.
Yeah, that's a good point. Any other thoughts that come to mind, Clinton, or since you're kind of the expert in this area of discussion?
Well, not really. There's not really much to comment on. It's just pro-abortion protesters, behaving boorishly and whatever their tactics are. It's not conducive to productive dialogue. So it's kind of pointless. If you're just going to politicize people on your side, well, you're not doing any good doing that, because you're not interacting with anything that the pro-life people believe. Or just you're just feeding the emotions of people on your side, and the people who are opposing you are not going to be swayed. They're just going to be more solidified in their own position. So no matter what their intentions are, it's just going to it's not productive at all, basically, because they're just going to push the pro-life people further to being pro-life. And if they are doing it to bolster their side, well, all they're doing is they're making the pro-choice people more bold, but they're not, they're not giving them any sort of productive way to sway the minds of the pro-life people, the people that they have to convince, because they're going to continue to oppose them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it could go either way. I mean, this is clearly a tactic of shaming, because, you're telling them that your church preaches hate. You're injuring other people by the things that you're doing, kind of thing. And so that seems like a pretty common thing to do these days, but it's similar to nagging. Your mother nags you long enough to do a thing, you do the thing just to stop the nagging. And the same thing could be true in shaming. Sometimes you back down or go away just to stop the shaming, not because you feel shame necessarily, but because you're uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, it's tedious, it's disruptive, and it's a thing you want to stop happening. And so eventually you acquiesce just to stop the unpleasantness.
Yeah. That's definitely true. One thing I'm seeing more from these kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just me this week, having been blocked from all my normal places I go on Facebook. But one thing I'm seeing more, and I heard them say this towards the end of the clip as well, is a claim that I guess the pro-choice position, or the language they use, is actually violent. I don't know. This just seems like the bizarrest claim I've heard from that side yet, in that the pro-life position is violent, and to claim that it's true is violence.
So the straw man that the pro-choice side has about the pro-life side is that it's all about controlling women. You're attempting to enslave women, and you tell them what they are and are not allowed to do with their bodies, and it's sort of the subjectivism or slavery of women, and it does violence against women in that respect. And so this is a necessary way that you would have to paint your opponent in order to justify your opposition to them. So, you take the real objection off the plate, the real objection being that they're doing damage to other human beings in abortion, and replace that with, the motivation of the other side is to control women, not to protect babies. And the protecting baby thing might just be an excuse, sort of like how deconversion is just an excuse to go out and have sex a lot or something like that. You have to paint the motives of your opponent in such a way that justifies your opposition. And so, the one side thinks that the other is all about killing babies, and the other side thinks the one is all about controlling women, neither of which is true. They're both straw men of the side to try to villainize them in order to justify these kinds of tactics. Because if you saw them as people, you might feel compelled to be polite, or, feel a little guilty about treading on their toes as you're trying to get past them in the aisle.
All right. And with that, we will move on.
Let's do.
Would y'all be up?
Yeah, nothing really to say about it. I'm usually more of a philosophy guy, but they weren't really making an argument except for that dumb statement that your language is violence. Nothing really to to say about it, other than I think what they were doing was just ridiculous and isn't helping matters any.
And sometimes I think that's all the response that's needed. That should be pretty obvious to most people. I don't know who's gonna stand up and say, "Oh, this was a great thing." I mean, I'm sure there will be some people, but
Well, I mean, people on their side will say that it was a great thing, but yeah.
So, what do you say? We have a quick round of speed memeing.
Hooah!
Are
I really need to
y'all
come up
up,
with
are
that.
y'all up for it, or are we too late into the night to survive through a round of this?
I'd be up for it.
Yeah, I can do it. I need to come up with a bumper for speed memeing.
Yes, that would be great, because playing the devil's advocate clip here is not going to do the trick.
Or, is it a love song? That one.
Yes, we need a similar one for this. That would be perfect. All right, so I think we played this last time. We had Steve here. We had some fun with some
Steve?
Young Earth. Yeah, Young Earth creationism memes. He couldn't join us tonight.
Poor guy.
He was on the road, so.
And Nick from the Virgin Birth went too many times and had to leave.
Yep.
Well, he's got a set bedtime.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is the one we finished up with last time. So just to give our listeners an idea. So the way this game works is I'm going to display a meme.
Oh.
And one of these fellows is going to have 30 seconds to respond to that meme. The other one will then have a chance to respond, and we'll go back and forth so everybody gets a chance to be first on this. We'll just play a short round tonight. We'll do like 4 memes here.
Sounds good.
And we'll see how y'all do.
I've got my cheerleading section here.
All right.
Everybody's got an animal except for me.
Yeah.
I got my lizard and let it hang up here on my shoulder. That'd be.
Oh, you have a lizard?
Yeah. And
I have to bring my robot in here.
There you go.
One day we'll all have robots. Don't brag. All right. So who wants to go first? Can I get a volunteer?
Me.
Oh,
All right. All right. Joel's up first then. Okay. So I'm going to display the meme. I'm going to read it as descriptively as possible for any audio listeners. And then immediately after that, we're going to go into Joel's 30-second or less response. So let me see which one I'm going to use here. Let me hide my screen real quick. Okay, this will be a good one for you, Joe. Not that I'm handpicking these or anything. All right, so here we go. Round 1. All right, so this picture has a man with a shirt on that says, "I'm atheist, debate me." And it says, "Atheist, if Christians really believed what they claim, they would preach to us." And then it says, "Also atheist. No, I don't. No, I don't want to talk about God. Shut up. It's all fake, and you can't convince me to believe in it." And Joel, go.
All right, so this seems like a Christian meme against atheist versus the other way around. I have heard the magician whose name is escaping me right now say that he appreciates fundamentalists insofar as that they do preach and they believe everybody's going to hell, so that shows some kind of sincerity in their belief. So, yeah, I mean, that's the only instance I've seen of that. And then as far as atheists saying, shut up and running away, I don't really see that. It seems like the opposite.
Yes, that atheist would be Penn Jillette.
Bonus points for correct magician identification there, Clinton. Now it's your turn. 30 seconds.
My turn?
Yep. Go.
Okay. Well, this is, I mean, this can be a contradiction with some atheists, but, like Joel was saying, there are atheists who do appreciate when a Christian talks to them because of that. So this is true for some atheists, but there are other atheists who do appreciate when a Christian is consistent in their views.
All right. With time to spare. All right. Any other extended thoughts before we move on?
Well, this one was kind of hard to find a response to because, this is kind of flipping the theme of the game on its head. And instead of responding to a bad atheist meme, we're having to respond to a bad Christian meme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the atheists that don't want to talk about religion don't go out or don't go around wearing atheist shirts and blasting to the world that they're an atheist. They usually just keep that to themselves. The ones that are very overt about their atheism generally want to talk about it.
That's true.
Yeah. In fact, many atheists actually kind of pride themselves on trying to deconvert Christians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Clinton.
Clinton's turn.
All right, here we go.
So I wait till you read it and then do my thing, right?
Yeah. So this shows somebody's with their head stuck in a tuba that another person's holding to their head. And it shows me, the atheist, is the one with their head stuck in this tuba, and the religious people is the other individual. And it says, "Come join our religion and worship Sky Daddy." And go.
Well, this one is definitely right up my alley, seeing as though I was in marching band when I was in high school. I played clarinet, not tuba. But I mean, this is just basically along the lines of the previous meme, that obviously calling God a Sky Daddy is a straw man version of the God that we believe in. We don't believe in a Sky Daddy. So, there are some atheists who don't like to be evangelized to, but other atheists do appreciate it. So, this is only representative of some atheists, not all.
All right. Right on time. And Joe, go.
There's a lot I'd like to say about this one, but given my lack of time, this is either a perception of the atheist who, looks at the largely religious culture. We're over 50% religious in the U.S. and feels as if they're being pressured by religious culture, or this atheist is being pressured in their particular situation. Because I don't know a lot of religious people going around accosting atheists and preaching at them intentionally.
Yeah, I never jammed the bell of my clarinet into an atheist's face when I was in high school.
Yeah, and I wonder how much is actually perceived this way.
So
I assume it's some, but I can't imagine it's too large of a group.
So there's three types of atheists that I'll say here. There are people who have never been religious, and if asked about their beliefs in God, they would say, "Yeah, I'm probably an atheist. I don't believe in God." But they don't go around wearing the atheist T-shirts or making that a point to tell people that or to have those discussions. Then there are people who used to be Christian and are now atheist, in which case they've come out of a religious environment and culture, and most of the people they've known in their life were Christians. And then there are the atheists that wander around, saying they're an atheist, getting onto the Unbelievable forum and talking about atheism and wearing atheist T-shirts and so on and so forth. So if the person that says me an atheist were the first kind, somebody who is not religious thinks they're an atheist but doesn't like to get into those conversations and talk, it might be that they're feeling sort of like a minority in a largely Christian culture because the people that they encounter, that stand out to them are the religious people. So in this case, it might reflect this sort of feeling of minorityship or oppression because they notice the religious people around them that kind of stands out to them. If it's the second kind, then they've come out of a religious environment, and the people they know are religious, or have been in the past, and so there's this sort of a pressure from their family, friends, their background, whether perceived or real, that they've done something wrong in leaving the religious environment, and there's this sort of pressure to return to their roots. The third kind are bringing this upon themselves by wearing atheist t-shirts and joining Christian forums and trying to engage with Christians and get into these kinds of arguments, in which case, yes, they're obviously being preached to by Christians because they're putting themselves in that position.
Yeah, I think that about covers it. All right, you ready for your next one, Joel?
Yes, sir.
All right. So on this one, we have a man standing looking rather frustrated, and the caption reads, "God gives free will to man. Man, I'm atheist." And then God's reaction is a blank, frustrated stare. And go.
All right. Well, I don't think that a person being atheist is something that God would not have seen coming, and is therefore angry. The misperception is that Christianity is a religion where if you were really behaving yourself, then God would, then you wouldn't be in trouble and you'd go to heaven. And therefore being an atheist is a sin because you're misbehaving or something. The fact of the matter is that, biblically we're all condemned, initially.
All right, Clinton, your turn. Go.
Well, yeah. The guy's reaction on the bottom really makes me crack up. But yeah, God saw it coming that some people would be atheists, especially after the fall happened. God cannot remove free will from someone or cannot give someone free will and force them to act in a certain way. So giving people free will means that God was running the risk of people rejecting him and becoming atheists. So this is not anything that should be surprising to anybody who believes in God or to God himself.
And time. Nice job. You're hitting it right on the mark tonight, Glenn.
Thank you.
All right. Any extended thoughts before we move on to our final one here?
So, in most religions, you have to behave in order to get the prize at the end of the tunnel. In Christianity, that's not possible. There's no amount of behavior that you could do that would be sufficient to meet the bar. And so, in Christianity, there's only one thing you have to do. It's the reverse of the forbidden fruit. There's only one thing you could do to condemn yourself. Well, there's only one thing you could do to uncondemn yourself, if you will, and that is to accept the forgiveness of Christ. Right. So being an atheist is the worst thing you could do only insofar as you've cut yourself off from the lifeline. There's one thing that you need to do, not some great, act of, over the topness, in order to get on the right side. All you need to do is accept the forgiveness that's being extended. And so, any other kind of sin that you would do with your free will could be forgiven. Being an atheist, it's whether it's a side effect of being an atheist or the purpose of being an atheist, you're not accepting the forgiveness of God.
Yep. Good point. All right. And Clinton, last one is yours.
Okay.
All right. And here we go. So this one reads, there's not a single religion that can survive the two words, prove it. And go.
This kind of meme is always ironic when you consider a number of atheists always say that it's not their job to prove atheism. It's the Christian's job to prove Christianity or whatever the religion is. But Christianity is unique as a major religion in that it does rely on truth claims that are investigatable, and so we need to investigate the claims of Christianity. And I think the weight of the evidence is in Christianity's favor.
All right. 3 seconds to spare. Joel, go.
So the catch here is what they'll accept as proof. And typically when they say prove it, what they mean is bring me a test tube and notes and do a reaction in front of me that I can see in the test tube and, measure it and record it and put it on. Basically they want empiricism. And since the kinds of investigation that you can do into Christianity are typically scholarly or philosophical, it's not empirical in nature, and therefore it cannot survive the words prove it because they set the standards of evidence.
All right. Final thoughts before we wrap up.
No, that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, I liked it tonight. You guys have got it down. So I liked it. I think it was good. Yeah. Listeners need to vote for a winner. We still haven't heard about a winner the first time we did this. So listeners, vote in the comments. Let us know who won with the best responses in this round of speed memeing.
Holy cow, this is a game you could win. I didn't know that.
You can, but it requires somebody to actually vote for you as a winner. So we actually have to have listeners tune in and let us know who they think won.
You have to start putting effort into this.
So it may not be winnable. We don't know yet.
It's winnable.
Yeah. But that's it. That's all I got for the show tonight. I think we've extinguished about everything. So let's give the old spiel of where people can find you and go from there. Clinton, you want to kick it off?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on Facebook just by searching my name. You can find me on Twitter and Parler, although I don't use those sites very, very much anymore, so I'm probably going to give those up. But you can also find me on MeWe and Gab.com by searching out my name again. And I also host a pro-life podcast called Pro-Life Thinking, which is a podcast that trains people in making the pro-life case effectively and persuasively. You can find our audio-only podcast on iTunes and blogtalkradio.com/pro-life thinking, or you can find us on our YouTube channel, Pro-Life Thinking, where we do video. And we extract the audio from the video to put it on our audio-only podcast, but we do have exclusive content on our audio podcast, and we're going to start having exclusive videos on our YouTube channel. So if you want to get the most out of the podcast, it would behoove you to listen to our audio podcast and to subscribe and hit the notification bell to our YouTube channel as well. And we've actually started up an account on Rumble too. So if we have any listeners that frequent Rumble, you can find our videos there too.
All right. I'll go next. You can find more content that I help produce over on Question Christianity on YouTube or Facebook. Check that out. We put out some content. We try and keep it as close to weekly as possible. Hop on over, check it out, see if it's something you might be interested in. And Joel?
Well, let's see. I'll make it simple. JoelFurchess.com. You guys didn't know I had a website, did you?
We do now.
Okay. Yeah, I modify it depending on what I happen to be into at that time. Right now, if you go there, there's the most obvious buttons are, check out my art and follow my research. I don't often blog on my research, but when I do, it's on that website. Right now, the thing. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't always blog on my research, but when I do. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway,
That needs
that's
to be the picture for your blog.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a place I've never pitched before. So that's a good place to go and check out information about. You can trace my journey over the years by the different updates that I've done to my website. And then, of course, I opened a YouTube channel recently for my research, and I updated that. I don't think that's going to receive too many updates going forward because I'm a busy guy. But I try. I'm thinking about maybe getting you on there someday, Caleb, and we can talk about cults.
Hey, I'm always up for talking about cults.
Yeah, we can do a video on cults because, I mean, as part of my conversion research, I've bumped up against cults more than occasionally. There's a lot of conversion going on in those cases. So they're popular. They're popular forms of study for a conversion researcher. If you just get into the field and you want to get a lot of research done very quickly, you hook up with the local cult and check them out, and that gives you a lot of research very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, they're always interesting. I give them that.
Yep. Yeah, when you're building models for religious conversion, you don't necessarily have to get specific about which religion unless you're doing a model for religious conversion there for that specific religion. And I've read research where it's like, what is conversion like in Filipino immigrants to Southern California? Which is really specific research.
Right,
but you go with what you got, right?
Exactly. All right. And you're already here watching the Mentionables. So if you hadn't subscribed, it would help us out if you did. Give us a dislike, a like. Either one probably helps us out. So we're okay with being divisive. So go ahead and dislike. That's fine too.
And comment.
And comment. Exactly. At least comment on who won speed memeing. So we look forward to hearing from people. So drop something in the comments, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.